If there's one thing for certain in Escape from Tarkov, it's that people love making money, and in order to make money, you have to spend money. My goal today is to show you guys a few budget-oriented kits that will help you maximize profit on your money runs. All right, so jumping straight into this, we're going to start off with the gear and then move into a few weapon options that I'd highly recommend to you guys. But first up, we're going to be talking about helmets. A lot of people in this game will tell you that helmets are a complete waste of money, but in my experience, they have saved me more times than they haven't, so I will always recommend wearing something with protection. Keeping with the theme of budget, the two recommendations that I have for you guys are going to be the staples of cheap helmets in Tarkov, and that's going to be the 6B47 from Proper Level 2 and the SSH68, or the old Peen helmet from Ragman Level 1. Both of these are Class 3 helmets with a pretty good chance to ricochet, and they're both relatively affordable at early levels. 6B47 comes in at just over 39k from Proper Level 2, and then the old Peener helmet comes in at just over 29k at Ragman Level 1. In my opinion, having these is better than having nothing at all, and they're great helmets to insurance fraud, and you'll likely get them back on insurance every single time. These are mostly there to really just help you against scavs or the occasional ricochet. A lot of times helmets aren't really going to do much for you, but I would rather have one than not have one. Moving on from helmets, we're going to touch on headsets really quick. Again, these are personal preference here, but the two budget options are going to be the GSSHs from Proper Level 1, and these cost about 17k, and then you've got the M32s over at Skier Level 1, and these are going to cost you around 29k. Personally, I'm a sword enjoyer, and I hate the way that both of these sound, but if these were my only options, I would gladly use them over having no headset at all. Even just a little bit extra hearing distance can mean the difference between surviving your raid or dying, so I would highly recommend running a headset, even if it's one of these cheaper ones here. Real quick, just want to give you guys a reminder that I'm live over on Twitch pretty much every day around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you have any questions related to my videos or just the game in general, feel free to stop by and hang out for a bit. We've also launched a community Discord, so if that interests you, that'll be linked below as well. Next up, I've got two pretty good budget options for armor, both of which can be obtained from Ragman Level 2 for under 70k. First up is going to be the 6B13 Assault, and in my opinion, this has become the new rat rig or the diaper rig, whatever you want to call it, with the changes to armor in patch 14. Coming in at just over 64k, this thing is a huge bargain for your money, and the coverage on it is pretty good. Unfortunately, it's only got Class 2 soft armor, but it does cover the neck, which is a huge bonus. Pair that with the fact that it comes with Class 4 plates, and you have yourself a very solid budget armor that will likely always come back on insurance. It is a bit heavy, coming in at 10.6 kilograms, but for the price, I can honestly deal with that. The other option for armor is going to be a personal favorite of mine, and that's going to be the Thor, which you can barter from Ragman for 2 Slim Diaries. And if we go ahead and check the price of these on the flea market, they usually hover around 35k, so you can pick this up for around 70k. Just a quick heads up, this barter is locked behind Database Part 1, which is a pretty early Ragman quest, and honestly, it's relatively easy to get done, so don't even worry about it. What I love about the Thor is the fact that it has Class 3 soft armor and has a lot more options for plates than the 6B13. The one trade-off is that it doesn't provide any kind of neck protection, but let's be honest, we're all just going to get head eyes anyways. Thor is slightly lighter than the 6B13, coming in at 10.4 kilograms, but I typically go ahead and swap out the front plate for one of these GAC Ballistic Class 5 plates. These things are under 1 kilogram, whereas the one that it comes with is 4.3. So if we go ahead and swap it out, that drops it down to just over 7 kilograms. If you don't have access to the Class 5 plates, no worries. Just go ahead and use the ones that it comes with. It's not really that big of a deal, but I just thought I would throw that in there. Overall, both of these armors are great budget options that almost always come back on insurance. I run the Thor a lot. I get these things back constantly on insurance, and a lot of people don't think to check the plates in here because I typically run a Class 5, so usually I'll get the plates back as well. But coming back on insurance is a big bonus, because the big takeaway here is that our goal is to stay budget friendly, and if you keep getting gear back on insurance, then that means you don't have to spend money on it again. Now that we've got all the protection stuff out of the way, let's dive into rigs and backpacks. Right off the rip, I'm going to recommend the Azimuth Zuck rig from Ragman Level 2 for about 33k, and the Oakley Mechanism backpack also from Ragman Level 2 for 67k. The goal for this kit and this whole video in general is a budget kit designed designed for money running. And in order to maximize the profit on our money runs, we're gonna need as many slots as possible to grab all that juicy loot. The Azimuth offers 20 slots and the mechanism gives us 32 slots, making these some of the highest slot pieces of gear for the lowest amount of money early on in the game. Of course, depending on your trader levels, you can always swap these out for other rigs and bags, but for the price, this is the best way to go. All right, so that's going to be all of the gear that I'm going to recommend to you guys. Let's go ahead and move on to a few weapon builds that I think are solid, starting off with an SMG. Now, I'm a big P90 enjoyer this wipe, and I would love to recommend it to you guys, but the issue is that it's super expensive to run. And when I started thinking about a budget option, I wanted something that was cheap, effective, and had a high fire rate. Another gun that kind of fits the bill here is the MP7, but it's kind of hard to get a hold of good ammunition in large quantities. That's the only downside of it. Again, remember, we're doing money runs, so the ultimate goal is to avoid PvP. However, if we do run into a situation where we have to fight, I want something that will absolutely shred, and that brings us to the long forgotten MP9, coming in at around 78k, excluding the optic, because that's kind of personal preference. I'm not going to include the cost of the optics on any of these builds. This thing is an absolute monster. You can pick it up on the fleet for pretty cheap. I think it's around 35k. There's also another variant that doesn't have the built-in foregrip, so you could run whatever grip you want. And the good thing about it is it doesn't require a bunch of parts to make it viable. Slap an optic, suppressor, laser on it, and you're basically good to go. Now, I personally run AP 6.3, which you can get from Peacekeeper level 3 for $2 a round, but honestly, if you don't have access to it, PST GZH is not a bad option either. I think the only difference is the AP 6.3 has like 10 more pin, whereas the PST GZH has roughly 20 pin. But honestly, with the fire rate on this thing being at 1100 rounds per minute, you could basically throw any round in this and you're gonna absolutely shred people. If you don't really like the MP9, I know a lot of people much prefer the P90, the Vector, and all that stuff over this. You can also run stuff like that as well for relatively cheap, but honestly, I kind of like the MP9 for how cheap it is. This build is like, I think I said 78k excluding the optic. You could throw on a cheap optic. I just like using this EOTech, and I had one in my stash, so I just slapped it on there. But this thing is an absolute shredder. When this gun came into the game, everybody was using it and everybody loved it, but it's kind of fallen off to the side a little bit for things like the MP7 and the Vector. But do not sleep on this gun, guys. It is insane. Real quick, let's jump into the hideout and kind of take a look at it. Close range, you're gonna absolutely destroy people. It's kind of insane. The fire rate is nasty. The accuracy is very good. It has very little recoil, and honestly, at like medium to longer ranges, it's not that bad either. I mean, we're hitting pretty much every shot at this target, and that is a pretty good distance away. We'll go back and try it at the far targets. I mean, this thing is a certified banger even at medium ranges. But all in all, under 100k, you can't really go wrong with this gun. Next up, I have an assault rifle for you guys, and we're going to be talking about the AKS-74U. Now, is this going to be the best assault rifle that you can be running? No, obviously there are better options, but the base gun is only 25k from proper, and it is very cheap to get a hold of right off the rip. We got this new upper receiver this wipe. You can get this from level 1 skier, and that basically allows us to put pretty much any optic that we want on it right off the rip. But in total, this build right here, excluding the optic, is around 75k, and the stats aren't too bad on it. We got really good ergo and decent vertical recoil. 545 AKs are some of my favorite guns to use early wipe, and this thing is no exceptions. One of the reasons why I like 545 AK so much is the abundance of ammo all over every single map. Not only can you find rounds for it just about anywhere, you can often find really good rounds for it in large quantities. I can't tell you guys how many times I've come across one of the 120 round boxes of ammo, a BP, BT, a Goldnick, BS, just all kinds of good ammo for 545. And I've been kind of hoarding it, and I haven't really used it too much, but I've just got a ton of ammo ready to use. Gonna go ahead and throw this on, jump into the hideout, and take a look at it. For 75k, you can't really go wrong with this. Obviously, you can spend more money if you want to make it a little bit better, but for me, if we're going budget, we're going with something like this. And finally, we have a little bit of DMR action for those medium to long range engagements, and of course, we're going to be talking about the SKS. Everybody's talking about the SKS this wipe. The patch that they just rolled back, they nerfed it, so I don't know if this thing is going to get nerfed in the future, but for right now, it is extremely good. So this particular SKS you can pick up from from mechanic level 2 with a barter, and that is going to be for 3 weapon parts. These things usually hover between 15 and 20k. You can sometimes pick them up even cheaper than that, so you're going to be into the gun roughly around 50k, and then obviously you can kind of build it however you want. I've chosen to put a suppressor on it, a Valde, and then of course we got a laser. I've also got the 20 round mags. I'd highly recommend you go with 20 rounders or 30 rounders over the built-in 10 rounds, because top loading the SKS is probably going to get you killed a lot, so I would suggest running some 20 round mags. If I'm running this gun, I'm going to be running the PP ammunition. Unfortunately, it is locked behind proper level 4, but the SKS is an absolute banger this wipe, and the recoil is almost non-existent. I mean, this thing is just, it's nasty. If you haven't tried the SKS yet, highly recommend giving it a try. It is just, it's too good. Even on the 6X, it's not that bad. I mean, you could just spam somebody from medium to long range and just absolutely destroy them. This gun is awesome. One more time, just for fun. That's stupid. I see why they tried to nerf it. Anyways, this build right here, excluding the optic again, is around 125k, a little bit more than the last two, but if you want that ability to shoot people from a little bit farther away, this is going to be a good option for you. Now, this is going to be everything that I recommend for a budget money running kit. Obviously, you guys can change this however you want. This is not me saying you need to run this and this is the only thing you should be running. Obviously, there's a ton of different guns in the game, but this is just kind of a few that I threw together on what I would probably run if I was mostly focused on budget and making as much money as possible. The goal here is, if we die, to lose as little amount of money as possible and try to get as much stuff back on insurance as we can. I think out of these 3 guns, the AK-74 is probably going to be the one that you would get back the most, because just looking at this, if I found this in raid, I probably wouldn't even take it. Maybe I'd take the Delta Point, but that's about it. But as far as gear goes, most of this stuff you are probably going to get back 100% of the time. I think all in all, excluding the gun, this kit is going to run you between 200 and 250k, which some of you might be saying, oh, that's a little pricey. I can make that kit way cheaper. Let's say you wanted to cut it down a little bit, you run a PACA, you drop your total investment by about 30k. The important thing to note here is that we want to have as much of a chance at survival as possible. I would rather spend 30k more rubles on a better armor with a higher chance to survive than save money up front on that PACA. It just, in my head, my brain, that's just the way it works, and I would rather spend a little bit more money to be able to survive. So that's basically going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and hopefully you learned something. That's going to be my guide on the most effective kits and weapons to use in your money runs to give you the most affordable chance at survival. If you guys have any questions or suggestions, feel free to drop it down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys use on your budget money runs. And again, quick reminder, we go live on Twitch pretty much every day around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we also have a community Discord where you can find people to play with, share photos of cursed guns, or even show off your loot at the end of a juicy raid. So if that interests you, it'll be linked down below as well. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.